You're listening to the Mangroves to Mountains podcast, where we talk all things outdoors, hunting, fishing, paddling,
We just
camping,
got through the
adventure
blind guy,
travel, and more.
and a
Thanks for
good time
listening.
was had by all. Before I forget it, let's talk about skunk apes, because I've
Oh my
never,
God.
ever spoken about it before. And I told you that story on the phone today about when I moved out west and fishing that tackle store I used to shop at, and the guy, the proprietor, got me fixed up with one of his customers, took me to the upper reaches of this river. And this is not far from where I lived. And it was called a town of Spanaway, which is what do you call it, a Tacoma, a suburb. And we were in the headwaters of the Nisqually River, which would be, uh, if you're in Lauderdale, it would be like the headwaters of the New River, except you're in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, to make a long story short, he caught what he wanted and he took off. And I had parked way down this muddy road. You couldn't get through there. And I'm starting to walk out of there and I hear this clump, clump, clump. And I mean, I do have a biological education. And I'm hearing this and I didn't know about the local flora and fauna, but they didn't have moose or elk there or any of this stuff. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what is this? And I thought, wait a minute, oh, here's the balloon, the 4th of July balloon.
I love it.
Yeah, and
Happy Independence Day.
yeah, right,
Wow.
and right. And to all a good night. But anyway, yeah, but to make a long story short, I hear this thing and it sounds like just a big two-legged thing clomping along this tree line. There's this great big kind of V shape where the stuff had been cut out along the river. And there was an Indian reservation back there. There were no, don't, trespass or any of that stuff. And I thought, oh God, this is probably somebody from the tribal council. Pardon me, coming down to read me the riot act. And, I believe the Indians got a bad break at, up until the Little Bighorn stuff. I mean, I take their point of view. I just didn't feel like getting yelled at. And I'm beating feet out of there and I hear this thing clumping. Now I hear the noise I make and I'm 200 pounds. And I hear this thing and I swear to Jim, it sounded like it was 400 pounds. And then I thought, well, I'll fix this. And this isn't that far away from me that I'm getting an echo. And I'd run like about 20 feet and it would run 20 feet and I'd stop and it would take one more step. And I thought, am I imagining this? I pulled this about 4 times in the last time. Now these trees are converging and this thing is getting closer. And I bump, 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 and I'd stop and bop, 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 bop. It'd take 2 or 3 more steps before it could slow down. And all of a sudden, all the blood drained and I took off running. And when I was younger, I could really run. And I sprinted. It must have been a half of, it was like running almost an 880, just running so hard. I was crying. And this thing is tromping after me and whatever it is. And I finally got to the car and I had my keys in my hand and I got the door up and I threw myself inside. I threw the rod and reel on the ground. I had a little spinning rod outside and I was afraid to look. And there was finally, when I did look, there was nothing there. And I picked the rod up and threw it in the car and how like when you're backing out of mud. And I started hauling butt out of there and I made it home. And I was married before when I was a kid, but I said, I'm not going to tell my wife this. Are they going to come and the thought police are going to come and take a belt and put it around my waist and take me off to the nearest mental hospital? And I didn't say nothing. And she must have known when I got home. I was white as my fair-skinned wife. I was really scared. And I didn't say nothing. I didn't want to act scared. And about 3 months later, all of a sudden, we lived on a road in Spanaway, which came from if one end is Puget Sound, the other end is Mount Rainier. And all of a sudden it came over the news. I mean, you didn't have like 100 stations back then. And this we interrupt an alert, and it stopped all traffic. Apparently, all these places like I live, you're up, everything's mountainous. And I'm looking out the picture window, and up there, in fact, I'm going to have this in there. Guy's got a real nice picture. He just summited, one of my Facebook friends just summited on Mount Rainier day before yesterday with his kid. A really cool thing.
Very cool.
And he's sending me a picture to use, but everybody was like right up against this road, and the backyard was, off in oblivion. This, out there, you're getting close to the Olympic Peninsula. That's real woods. And somebody, apparently, it was like the first day of spring, looked in the backyard, and everybody had vegetable gardens. And here this guy or wife goes and looks out the back window, and here's this family of, I call them Sasquatch, I want of a better, and the husband and the wife are there, and they're playing, and the kids are playing. There's 2 kids, and they're digging up turnip roots and eating them. And somebody called the cops. We didn't have Facebook and all that stuff then. And all these Army lifers and stuff, ex-lifers, they all got their deer rifles. They're going to get them on. They're going to kill something, we didn't have it on them in my backyard. And they must have had 50 or 100 sheriffs out there. They had the traffic blocked. This was for hours. And I mean, I lived this. And now with the control of the media by and you ought to be able to see that. But I never told that. And you told me, I remember asking about it, and I never talked to anybody about it. But down here, because that when you go into Chokoloskee, there was that one place, that one lunch joint, and they had a line drawing of a skunk ape or something.
Oh yeah, on the corner. Yeah. Make the turn to Chokoloskee.
Yeah. And you told me since then, I'd heard 2 stories then. But you told me you saw a man going to the John, a skunk ape, and somebody was going back scouting for deer, and it saw the guy, and it was naturally offended by being interrupted while he was conducting his toilet. The thing kind of came after him, and the guy was so scared he dropped his rifle and ran to the. And
That's
they
right.
got the Dade County cops and everybody over there, and they found a rifle, but they couldn't find anything. And you told me that you'd heard a couple stories too.
Yeah. I've actually heard 4 credible stories. I won't go into all of them, but the one that amazed me the most was it was from a woman, which, I don't know your opinion of it. Women never lie. So, but anyway, boom. So anyway, it was actually on Card Sound Road. So you go, south on US,
yeah.
right? So you make the turn onto Card Sound Road, or you could go to the Keys on US 1 or whatever that is. And she said that they were just driving towards like Alabama Jacks, and on the left side of the road, where it's really wild over there and it's undeveloped. And she thought it was a bear, like standing, but upright and scratching its back against a tree, but it wasn't a bear. I mean, she saw it clearly enough. She was driving, so they're going south. Her husband's in the passenger seat. She sees this thing like just for a few seconds, as they're passing it. And then close to the road, I mean, she got a really good look at it. And this is in the summer. So they went down where, it's not a real safe road to do U-turn, but because of the traffic, if they turn around.
No, I've been out there. I know what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it's like a racetrack. And especially people coming back from Alabama Jacks after a few pops.
Yeah, but incidentally, they don't hold the Mensa deal there. Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah, the South Dade chapter. But anyway, actually, Steve, the Skunk Ape is one of the members, but he heads it up. But anyway, they did
secretary
recordings. They did a U-turn as fast and as safely as they could, and they came back to that spot where that tree was, and it was just gone. But she swears to me, she swore to me up and
Oh,
down.
yeah,
I
no, no,
saw it.
women are very credible witnesses. That's not, I'm
And there
not
was no
making.
bear. There aren't any bears down there. There's no bears. There's bears in the Everglades, but not east of, or yeah, east of Card Sound Road.
Okay, I will tell you a story, and this was another one, and this one is like too weird. I had a guy with me. You remember, um, 92, the one that goes, over to Marco
Oh yeah.
from the
Mhm.
trail. I'm going there, and I'm partway over there, and I had a guy in, and I told you I've got this screwed up neck now. I had to get an MRI. When you're driving in a car like that all the time, you're trying to keep your eye on the road at the same time, and you're trying to look your customer in the face because, people you like to look eye to eye. And this thing comes out, I remember down. Now, this is not exactly where you and I went, but this is like about that. And here comes this thing out of the freaking water, standing upright in the middle of the day, and it plods across the road. Now, I've seen a couple of bears, uh, but this thing was big, and he's way up there. He's not boom, boom, boom. He's standing there, and he's like boogieing across the road. And Jim, I shit you not, it's like you took a, what do you call it, mop. This thing is soaked. I mean, it's got 50 pounds of water on, and walks over to the water on the other side and disappears. And I'm looking, and I don't think this guy, and this thing is, I'd stopped the car. There was no other traffic on the road, about 30 feet in front of me. And this guy's talking to me, and ding, 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 ding. My head's going off like a pinball machine. And I never said anything about that. And I always wrote that off to, those bears will stand up. And, we just had that thing down here where they had to shoot that one up in Port St. Lucie for
Yeah, I
doing
saw that.
absolutely nothing.
Senseless.
Yeah, senseless. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's, yeah, I heard, but that thing about they had it, and I don't know. I've looked at things now, I say I'm getting older, and my memory is probably, memory is subjective. You sometimes believe what you want to believe. But I noticed that with recalling some of this information for these stories, that my power of recall is very good.
Mhm.
And I have not caught myself in something that's really way off base about stuff. And I've seen, I'll tell you what I also have seen. I've seen 2 Everglades minks out there. I'm not talking about otters,
Oh wow.
actual minks. Yeah.
I've never seen one.
Oh, they're lustrous black. Pardon me, they're about, I don't know, 3 feet long, if that. And I saw one at Wooten's, and I saw one on up by, where the where the Seminole Village there, and the thing where you go and buy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, up in there, up before you get to Port of the Islands.
Yeah. On the right side.
Yeah, and other than that, have I ever seen anything that I would say weird? I know there's a lot of cougar. Well, I don't know, jaguars, panthers, cougars, whatever.
Yeah.
And there was that woman, Pretty, who was on the game commission here for a while. And she had bought some property up there there's a big intersection, and she wanted to take the panthers off the endangered list because she didn't want to have to pay these workmen to do a lot. I remember there was one, if you take the trail and you drive into Naples, there was one that used to sit there in the morning. A friend of mine, he actually was an officer with LL Bean at one time before he retired. And there was one, these big stanchions, trigonometry arms, country club or something like that. And this panther used to get up there in the morning while the traffic was moving like 2 miles an hour. When Naples finally got mired in glue and everything went slow, and sitting there, and I used to hear him driving home all the time. The females,
Yeah.
come hither.
That's amazing. It's such a crazy place. Like I've always said about the like the skunk ape or whatever you want to call it. If any place on earth they could exist, it's there, because it's 1 million acres, not counting close to 1 million acres, not counting Everglades National Park south of there.
Yeah, I did a little research on cryptohominids, and uh, they're apparently the not Homo sapiens, but there are a bunch of branches on the tree. The Chinese Communist government thought enough about it to fund research there in the Himalayas. Of course, the University of Oregon, but I mean, they fund anything, no please, free weed,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Free
like,
needles.
yeah, free needles. Also, where supposedly really the most of them have been, there is a Homo heidelbergensis, like Heidelberg, University of Heidelberg, right north of up in the Caucasus, right north of where all this nonsense is going on over there, and that we're seeing with these, folks over there, and whatever,
It could be that just somebody spotted a Turk.
Yeah, Turkey.
Turkey. I'm Greek, so we, it's skunk ape Turks.
Hey, you told that was something about you. So you fished Greece.
Yeah, that was incredible. Incredible. Just one of
And
my lifetime
over there
dreams.
in the country of Achilles, these bums are shooting trout with a spear gun.
Yeah, and posting it on Facebook. Yeah, pictures like with 50 trout lined up like they're, sardines, but not sardines, 22-inch sardines that are rare brown trout. So they've been caught, they've been prosecuted. But anyway, the fishing there was incredible. It's so much like Colorado, like pocket water, ice cold water. Green is emerald green water, like didn't look real. It's like something in like a Disney, like they'd fake the water, like this is how water should look in the mountains. That's what it looked like. And catching trout up to 20 inches on cicada patterns, size 2. They're just crushing them.
Like
6
I'll tell you,
weights.
I got to see the West while it was still rocking, and I got to see it on a beer budget. Vicki and I went out there, and it was so fortunate that the first time we went to Yellowstone was when she could get a vacation. She used to work for the courthouse, and me, I worked for that insurance company, but I'd been there about 100 years. They didn't care. I was a commission agent. You don't sell anything, you don't make any money. And of course, you have renewals. But we went out there. I didn't really know the exact cycles or whatever, but we got the Buffalo Ford on the Yellowstone, which arguably is the most psychotic for trout in the world. Exactly the time that those Yellowstone cutthroats that run up out of the lake, and they're 18 to 23 inches, all of them. There's no little ones. And they're in that one area. I just learned to tie.
Sorry, go ahead.
I had just learned, hold on, let me move this here. I had just learned how to tie no hackle patterns. And those fish all had, postgraduate degrees.
Yeah.
And it was psychotic. I mean, you couldn't put it in the water. And I thought that I don't want to do this anymore. It's like the guy you take bonefish and he gets one, he gets a Taylor on the first cast and said, okay, done there, been there, done that. I won't get another one until 2023. But, it's like, oh, that was easy.
Yeah. Let's switch gears again.
Sure.
Circle back to tackle, and especially flies, because I know a lot of the listeners are fly tires, and you have some interesting patterns and interesting names for patterns. I think you had let's talk about the trail first. What's you don't have to give away your secret fly, but what do you like?
No, it's okay. There's no secrets. I feel very blessed to be able to have prosecuted a living doing this. I don't mind sharing. The one that I've done very well with is called a rivet, and it is basically, I call it a rivet because it looks like the rivet. It's gray in the, with the siding there. Mm-hmm. And basically it's a I use either like gray or, that really, really thin doll hair. And I dot it with a magic marker, 3 sets of dots. I have a gray marabou collar and a gray deer hair head. And I don't dress them, but the thing bulges. I don't want it going push across the surface. If I want that, I'll use a slider. I'll use it. And that has never let me down. Now, there are times that, and this happens only rarely, when those minnows are so thick in there, they're like baleen, like with these whales that go through them, and with those things in there, they're just straining them. And that Connor thing, that's when he and I used to fish there. I used to take one of those flies. I was not, frankly, I suppose I shouldn't say that. The fly, if you put a leader on there, the hook wouldn't keel it,
Right.
and it would come
Too light.
sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I used to do was, the one time I used to I'd spit my leader and my fly, spit it about 4 inches of it, so you wouldn't and I'd get just a little bit of fly snot on there, floating on the rest of it, and I'd throw that thing out and let that come across like an emerger, in the current, where what do you call it, was hanging down a little bit and not moving at all, and you're just going along with it. And these big snooker just wallowing in there, and all of a sudden you see boing, and your leader point would twitch and start to move, and just raise the rod, and there he'd be.
Awesome. And I assume
Yeah,
tarpon.
that was some cool corrective therapy. That was good. We caught other stuff there. We got at different times. We actually did catch some big redfish in the trail, not very many, and also on that road that goes down 92 or whatever. I'm not sure if I ever caught a trout launching a canoe down by where that opens into Naples Bay or whatever. I've seen bunches of, once or twice, black drum on the trail, great big black drum.
Wow. Never seen that.
Yeah, I've seen those big mohara, bunches of them spawning, and that's where you have to have a perfect little fly, these shrimp imitations. And I'd tie them 2 ways with, what is it, Antron, one where the horns go first, one where the tail goes first. And the one you twitch in front of them and they'd come up and take that. The other was where I'd have the first part of the leader, I'd have no leader knot on, and this is when they got really weird. The snook did underneath the bridges, and it was all really soapy water, and boom, 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 up against the pilings, and you'd be down in the water. And by the grace of God, I never ended up catching, monkeypox or something wading around in there.
Or an
But you
alligator.
throw it, have a itty bitty little split, and that fly would sink down while the indicator, I had the thing out of it, just a hole in it, and I'd widen the hole, go sink down like this. These things go bop, 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 and you see these little grass shrimp jumping, and you just raise the thing up, and up would come that fly towards the surface, towards the indicator, and boing, and you'd have one. That
Holy
was
cow.
cool. And the other thing, I really hesitate, I'm going to tell it because my lies can follow me into my grave or whatever, but I swear a guy that was with me one time using a jig hooked about a 15-pound permit and had it on for a really long time, screaming up and down the canal. And I know Novak, when he fished over there, where all those, and I mean, I have all the maps and everything, where all those bridges and they empty into the bays and stuff. And he caught 2. He caught a 12 and a 14-pounder with a customer up against the mangroves. So who's to say? I mean, and of course, in the wintertime, when the water would get real clear and stuff, and too cold for bass and whatever, and tarpon, you would get, when it's all, the water level was, I can't remember, it was at the time starting to go down, but we'd get those, I call them marsh bass, freshwater bass. We get some big ones, 5-6 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And they wouldn't hit a popper. You had to have a little minnow, and
Yeah.
and you just barely move it, and they'd eat it like Mr. Creosote with a pardon me, a thin man.
Yeah,
That-
the bass
I
are some of
can't
the
remember
harder.
anything.
The bass are out there, at least for me, are some of the harder fish to catch.
Oh, yeah, they are.
I don't know what it is, but they're selective. The tarpon and the snook are easier to catch for me anyway, and clients.
I believe those bass are a subspecies. I believe they can also be found in somewhere up in Pensacola in those estuaries, and also in North Carolina, way back in, as you go up into Tidewater, whatever they call it,
Hmm.
and nowhere else in the world.
You got to talk about that the shad fly that you tie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wrote about it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's awful. I hope we don't.
We like awful. That's good.
Okay, well, I I fell in love with anadromous shad because it was as close as, somebody, of my limited means could get to anadromous fish. And I've really done a lot of research on that. And I would do stuff and it made a difference. I had 4 flies I'd use. I had, the standard was, silver chenille body, hot orange tail, hot orange hackle, and the what do you call it? The bead eyes. And these were just bead chain eyes. I never believed the only time I would ever add weight to a fly was little tiny. If I wanted it to nod, if I wanted to get a fly down, I would use a sinking line. All this. If you want a jig, for Christ's sake, use a jig.
Yeah,
There's
that's
no
right.
shame in it. Use a jig.
Exactly.
But anyway, getting back to that, we used to go there, and at best it was dredging. This guy, God rest him, he's no longer with us. Phil Woodham and I met him up there, and we fished a bunch of different places, accesses on the St. Johns River. And we started doing some research, and we found that there were places where you could get these shad to come up. I'm not going to say on top, but closer to the top. And after there's a shrimp fishery where the St. John's widens, as it goes, I forget the town there and stuff like that. They used to have a viable fishery there. So we started out, we were using muddlers and making them wake, and we'd catch 2 or 3 shads on the top like that with this bulging fly, and we thought, we're on to something. And finally, after much ado, in a couple of years, we came up with this little red deer hair cigar with a flat bottom on a number 14 long shank hook, bright pink, with a little itty bitty short, what do you call it, tail, marabou tail. You take them, and I forget if I used to grease that thing or not. You throw it, and you actually just move it across the surface. And Connor, when, of course, Connor always, would assume the platform because it was his boat, trying to show him. He'd lose his shit. These things would be gone across the surface, and all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, this 3-pound rose shad would be 4 feet in the air with it. It was the neatest thing you ever saw. And, I needed a name for this. And here's this garish, bright pink thing. And I thought, well, we'll call it Little Richard, after that flamboyant rocker of the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Going to tell Aunt Mary, Uncle John, okay.
Yep.
And I went on, and okay, the insider thing about that is, beg pardon to any ladies who hear that, where I really got the idea for that is, I used to drink beers with my buddy who still lives here at the tennis club, and he had a little boy Chihuahua. And you know how boy dogs are; they're always sitting there, their legs splayed, and they're always cleaning themselves, and their lipstick comes out and stuff like that.
Lipstick.
That's what it was.
Oh,
I don't
Richard.
advertise that.
That's classic. I've never forgotten that.
Some of my, and the mullet flies, MS7, the East Monostat 7 and stuff like that.
I hadn't heard that one. That's good.
So,
So I just found I went actually to the Orvis shop today and here in Raleigh, and really nice young guy working there. And he was so like, I was like, I just moved here. I need info on fishing, just around, I've seen the Neuse River, there's the Eno River west of town.
yeah.
And we just started talking fish. And he said, I've been so jacked since I heard this, but he's like, you can go to the Neuse River right now with a little popper, a 3-weight, 4-weight, whatever rod you want to use, and catch 50 bluegill on fly today. But go right now and you can do it. But so that was one thing that got me fired up. But he said, there's also a shad run here in March. I was like, what? It's like, I've never caught it. Yeah, I've never caught a shad. And he was talking about sinking lines and all this. And that's what made me think about the Little Richard fly and how you'd done really well with that on the St. John's.
Stripers.
And stripers.
Also, yeah. I'll tell you who knows about that. Is Marty Arostegui. His wife just had some excellent fishing up there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, on floating lines and fly rod.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. So, the other thing too is, and this will get into another story. They have these lakes here that have a lot of carp, common carp and grass carp and mirror carp. But this guy fishes a lot for common carp, just like bone fishing or fishing for redfish. And that's like 5 minutes from where I live. So like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, sometimes they hit good. And something I'll tell you about that I know, I've got some videos. When I first started, being the land guide, all of a sudden I had a lot of new friends because they all wanted to, latch their tail on this and stuff. And I have videos of this back when we used to have VHS and stuff. I think a mirror carp is nothing but a genetically flawed common carp, Cyprio, whatever, that doesn't have all the scales. But what I wanted to tell you is there are times when, number one, when the carp go into shallows and they root for insects, okay? And the other thing is when crayfish spawn and they really go ape shit then with crayfish flies. You could throw it to them. You can spot cast them.
Oh, that's.
They're big, nasty fish. For somebody who's accustomed to catching, black-nosed dace or some damn thing. They're a big deal.
Yeah, he said
in Carolina. You got all kinds of stuff. They got bonitas off the beach and everything.
Yeah. He said they regularly get pulled into their backing and use 7 and 8 weights for them. So yeah I'm psyched. It's good. Good to hear. Very excited about that.
Yeah, no, you're gonna have fun up there. And now look at it this way: you escaped right ahead of the COVID.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, people are still wearing masks up here. I saw a guy riding a bike yesterday with a mask on.
Oh man,
we don't need to get into that.
You do, because you don't know where they're from.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
No,
I ride a motorcycle with a mask on in their body.
Yeah, where did you hear that? What Vicky said, saw a guy ride a motorcycle with no helmet but a mask on. You know what that's like? That's like a single guy going out on a date all by himself in a car with a, what?
Yeah, we're on a.
Like, come on.
That had to be a gag.
Yeah. No. We invented it here. If it could be treated, we have it.
He has he's probably what did you call him, the recording for Mensa, the recording secretary for Mensa.
Secretary for Mensa.
In Broward County.
No, it's indescribable. The shit you see when you don't have a gun.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what you and I have to do? I got to get you to swap these things with my buddy Lunker Dog down here. There's a lot of stuff that he can turn you on to also.
Oh, cool.
That Jeff Maggio. And, let's be honest, the podcast is the wave of the future. You turn on the TV and you get a 2-minute soundbite about, somebody shot Zelensky. It's like you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Where this stuff, you get to really And if somebody likes who or what you're talking about, I mean, you really get to hear something.
Hmm.
And they get to make their own mind up. It's a lot different. It's not force feeding.
Exactly. Yep. That's what I like about it. That's why I
Well, this
said
is
when
good.
we
You're
were
a good interviewer. I'm enjoying this.
excellent. Thank you. I
I mean, this is the
appreciate that.
most fun I've had with my clothes on for a while. So,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, we'll do it.
I've got a new book coming out.
Yes. What's the name of it? What's
Well,
the
this is what
title?
all the Fox guys say. This one is titled "The Longest River,"
Oh, I like that.
and it's a collection of 30 short stories, longer ones this time. Um, uh, Kind of no holes barred, a lot of fictional stuff that really smacks at the heart of it, and it harkens back to when you and I first got our feet wet with this, and what a wonderful world this was, and hopefully I write it not just to make a big buck, which may or may not ever happen, but rather to perfect my craft as a writer, and mostly to maybe inspire some of these young bloods to get off their lazy ass and get out of their mother's basement and go do something. Go to a polling place, go to a city council meeting and start screaming about. I mean, when I go take a shower at night, I live in a sophisticated condo and stuff like that in the water. And I mean, Jim, I know the difference between iron water, okay? I mean, this stuff it's manure water right down the
Oh,
street here. Oh, no,